Hello everyone, welcome to a new video from a Jedrat. In this video, I'm going to reveal one of my main weapons from when I was a kid playing in the national championship. This weapon allowed me to win way too many games and way too many tournaments, alright? We're talking about first, the Italian opening, okay? A super well-known opening, this one right here. Knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4. But it's not the Italian opening itself that I'm going to explain to you, it's an attack plan that we always have. In the Italian opening, this plan has worked for me so many times. And like I always say, it's an ace up my sleeve to use when I don't know what to play. Alright, so let's take a look at it with all the options, and let's start by seeing what happens if they play knight to f6 first. We're really going to use this plan no matter what they do to us in the Italian. They might also play bishop to c5 first, or even d6, but you'll see that the plan is really simple. They play bishop to c5, they play knight to f6. We're going to play d3. If they play knight to f6, then all the more reason. Why? Because they're directly attacking this pawn right here. So first, what do? d3, defending this pawn. And we've also developed our two pieces. Now we can develop the others easily, thanks to having moved this pawn as well. Very good. No matter what they do, we castle. Alright? And now, usually they'll castle or play d6. The move order really doesn't matter to us, because what we want is to develop this knight to c3 first. Notice that this isn't standard theory anymore. Standard theory would probably be playing c3, right? Or even bishop to b3, right? But we're going to play knight to c3. This move works super well among amateur players. Why? Because these kinds of setups, right? And now, d6. This is the kind of setup that amateurs always play. Some super easy Italian games, developing the knights toward the center. And all that, I'm sure you've come across this many times. Alright, here we're going to play the key move. Make sure you remember this move. It's the key move for the whole attack. We're going to play bishop to g5. What this move does is pin this knight, okay? What are we threatening now? Obviously, we're threatening this knight jump. Knight to d5, putting incredible pressure on the knight on f6. Do you see it? Here, no matter what they do, they'd probably have to double their pawns. Whether they move this bishop or this pawn, because we would simply capture here, and then they'd have to double their pawns. They couldn't capture with the queen because we have the knight. So here, what are we threatening? We're threatening knight to d5. That's why the best move here is quickly h6, to chase away this bishop and ask it to explain itself. However, we're not afraid of that at all, since we can just pull it back to this square here. And honestly, it does the same job from here as it did from there. And you might say, chess teacher, but here they can play g5, which is super useful and super popular, where they basically force you to pull the bishop back. Look, if they go for this plan of h6 and g5, they've already lost the game. That's right, they've already lost the game, and I'm going to explain why. We're simply going to capture this pawn with the knight. Why are you sacrificing the knight, chess teacher? Well, here's why. It's very common to sacrifice two pawns for the knight because now there's no way to stop this threat. Notice that there are no pawns left that can drive the bishop away. Plus, this king is completely exposed. And pay attention because I'm going to show you how to win this. It's super easy. So what do they have to do now? Well, it's really easy. There's only one move that seems to save them, right? Imagine that here they ignore the threat and, for example, play rook to e8. They've already lost. Why? Because after knight to d5, now we're going to capture this knight completely for free. There's no way to save themselves. Notice that this knight is pinned. Do you see? So here, if they make any random move like rook to e8, we would simply win the game. There is only one move you need to keep in mind. One move you should memorize, and that's bishop to e6. Notice that it seems like I've made a lot of moves, but this plan will always work and you'll always do it the same way, okay? Give me a good, okay? If you like these kinds of videos, please. If you like this video and listen, if this video gets to 400 likes, yeah, I know that is a lot, I will make another plan that is also super good, a real winner for the Spanish opening, which I also have a spectacular one for. As good or even better than this one? Well, I'd say it's just as good, okay? I know it's not a lot of likes, but like I always say, we're not the biggest channel, but we are the most loyal one, where there aren't many of us, but we're quality followers. Pay attention, the only move that saves you here is bringing the knight to bishop 6. What do you have to do? Very easy. We bring the knight back in no matter what. The threat is the same. And now again, they only have one move that saves them. That's what's great about this system, alright? Which move saves them? Well, logically, the only one is to take the knight with the bishop. Why? Because if they do anything else, we're threatening to capture here with two pieces, and this knight can't be defended, because if you use the king, look closely, you'd lose the queen, right? Even if you check with the queen, it's defended by the knight. So there's no way to defend here. The only good move is to capture the knight. There's no other option. That's why they placed the bishop on e6. Look closely. If they play this plan against you, I'm going to show you now how to win. But if they don't, they've already lost on the spot, because the threat would simply be unstoppable. How should you capture? With the bishop or with the pawn? Very important. Very important. With the pawn. And you'll see why. Very important. Attacking this knight. This knight now has two options. It can only move forward here or go back. Because if it comes here, it would simply be giving us the knight for free. Notice that it's leaving the queen undefended with the knight. It's interfering with the defense. It has to go to the side. The most common and definitely the best move is knight to a5 because it gets out of the thread and also attacks our bishop. Do we care that it's attacking our bishop? No, we don't care. We'll just keep up the threat with queen to f3 and we're bringing all our pieces into the attack. Do you see it? Now we're back to the same position as before. We're attacking with the queen and the bishop. Two pieces are attacking and how many are defending? Well, you can see it for yourselves. Only one is defending. Is there any way here? Any way for the black pieces to save themselves? No, but they can try to hold on a bit longer, like by defending this with the king. Just what? Two pieces attack, two pieces defend. Now, if we were to capture with the bishop, simply queen takes bishop, then queen takes queen, king takes queen, and we'd end up down a piece. Why? Because they have two pieces and we have one. Remember well that we sacrificed our knight in exchange for two pawns, so we can't just trade pieces carelessly. However, it's absolutely fine because the winning plan, pay attention, because it's very simple, is to bring the other rook into the attack. That's also why it was so important to capture with this pawn, because it had two purposes. First, to drive away the knight and gain a tempo, and second, to open the way for the rook to come in. So we bring the rook that wasn't doing anything into the attack, and at this point, it really doesn't matter what they do. The most logical thing they'll try is to move their rook to get their king to the other side. That's really the only plan they think might save them. But don't worry, because it's as simple as this. No matter if they do that or something else, we're going to do the same thing and we're going to win. What are we going to do? Well, it's as simple as taking advantage of the fact that this knight is pinned, rook to 4. We have all the time in the world, and I'm going to explain why, and you'll all understand. Notice that this king can never move. No matter how much it tries to come over here, as soon as it moves, it will lose the knight. And once it loses the knight, it will be left with two pawns down from the castled king. Alright? So it would be in a completely lost position. So this king can't move away from defending the knight. We have all the time in the world to bring the rook over, get it involved in the attack, taking advantage of the fact that we've placed this pawn here. You've seen how important it is to capture with this pawn, and it might look like this rook is under attack, but it's not, because we have the bishop, as I mentioned, pinning this knight. What can they try to do? Honestly, it doesn't matter to us at all. It can't do anything. For example, they could try bringing the queen over here, just to say something, right? And then we simply bring the rook into the attack. It can't capture either, for the same reason. And now we're threatening way too many things. If at some point they capture here, sometimes you don't even need to recapture. Maybe, if they had done it earlier, yes, it wouldn't have mattered either. But in this case, look closely. We could simply take here with check and win the queen. Right? Why? Because they can't capture here since we're giving a double check with the bishop and the rook. So they'd have to move the king and then capture. We would capture here. What would have happened if, when we're in this situation, I'm going to go back just a bit so everyone understands me. As I just said, they capture this bishop of yours. Should he cut that? Well, that's easy. I'll explain it to you. We're in this position. Let's suppose that here, instead of, well, this hasn't moved, right? Instead of rook to g8, like I said, they capture your bishop. So now, well, we do this and they capture your bishop here. Of course, we should capture. In this case, we really should capture because we don't have a direct attack. Notice that in this video, I'm trying to explain to you, no matter what they do, how you should react. That's why this video is so thorough, okay? In this case, since we don't have a direct attack, yes, we recapture this knight, okay? And they don't have any other counterplay because, notice, they're in the same situation. They'll never be able to move either the king or the queen away from defending the knight. Why? Because they'd lose the piece. And whatever they do, as always, they're going to lose the game. This bishop won't be able to come and defend the knight in any way because its path is blocked. A super important detail. And now you're really going to fall in love with this attack. I'm sure of it. Take a good look. Knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, the Italian opening. Earlier we saw knight to f6 here, but I told you it didn't matter. For example, bishop to c5 is the other main line, as a response to the Italian opening. So we play d3 anyway. We always play the same. Castle, okay. Castling, for example, or d6, it doesn't matter because we're going to play knight to c3 and we usually reach this position. The move order doesn't matter. Almost all amateurs end up in this position here. And I told you that the key move here was the bishop pinning the knight. You've already seen how amazing that is, right? It's clear that here we were threatening this jump, and that's why they play h6, which is a good move. The bad move was g5, but what happens if they don't play g5? Well, this detail is going to win you over, and I'm sure you hadn't noticed it before. They might say, well, I'm going to threaten you with the same thing. Watch out, right? I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and this happens a lot among amateurs. What's the small difference here? The difference is that our plan actually worked. Careful, we can play here. They'll say, well, I'll just do the same thing, right? But we really can play g4. Let's see, chess teacher, why can we do it? Because they'll never be able to capture here since this knight is pinned and they'd lose the queen. In fact, it's happened to me many times that here they don't even realize it and they capture this pawn thinking they have a winning attack and simply, they lose the queen. That is, right here. We really could play g4, so what happens here? What's the wrong move here? The wrong move is this one right here, because we simply come here and when they leave, we can play g4. Well, at this point, many of you might say, but they're not forced to capture here, they can just come here, so what do we do next? Well, whether they've done this or not, our plan stays the same. Look how simple it is. Notice that now I've made it a bit more complicated so you can see it. But what do we do? Again, it's the same thing. And you tell me, how do you get out of this double knight jump? The truth is, there's no way to get out of it. Now they can try anything, but our advantage is just too big. For example, let's suppose a move like, I don't know, they really can't do anything either. I'll suppose this one, right? Which poses some kind of problem for this bishop. In this case, it would actually be a total loss because we'd have the move b4, which puts on a lot of pressure. And you might say, well, yeah, this just looks like a piece exchange, right? I take here and that's that. Well, careful because there are some details to this. Now, when we capture here, they have to continue, for example, with whatever they want. Let's say they capture over here, and once they do, we simply take this knight and we're up a piece. So when they do this, they have to be aware of the threat of moving this knight. All right, let's suppose they move this knight back to where it was. Well, we simply increase the pressure. Queen to d2, we attack the knight, bring the queen into the attack. There's no need to memorize this. It's just an example to show how easy it is to attack. This knight has to move, and once we see there's no more counterplay, we make the threat we can always make. Bishop takes knight. You could have even done it earlier if you wanted, right? They can't capture with the queen, they have to take with the pawn. Why? Because we have the knight, and once they take with the pawn, notice how their whole kingside is getting weakened, letting the queen in, and ultimately this attack is completely unstoppable. We can pull the queen back here to target this square with two pieces, then maybe break through with g5, bring in the rooks. As you can see, it's a very enjoyable attack to play with the white pieces. There's one thing you need to know when playing this attack. It's extremely important, and I'm going to show you what it is next. Instead of showing you this thing and then looking at a game just to waste time, let's do this. I've already found a strong game where this last variation I'm about to show you is played, so we kill two birds with one stone. The video is shorter, and you spend just the right amount of time, investing the time you need to learn this opening. Look, bishop to c4. In this game, first knight to f6 was played, then d3, bishop to c5, castling. This is all stuff we've already seen, right? Castling, knight to c3, and d6, the key move. Bishop to g5, very good. But now something happens that hasn't happened in any of the previous variations. Instead of kicking out this bishop like we've seen up until now, they don't kick it out. When they did kick it out, great. But what happens if they just bring their bishop here to try to trade bishops with us? Should we come in and put pressure again with the knight? The answer is yes, but with a nuance. Careful, now it's obvious that they should trade this bishop for this knight. You already know this very well. Notice that I'm showing you the good moves for black. It's clear that h6 was good, but the follow-up wasn't good. It's clear that knight bishop here is good, but you have to pay attention to the nuances. It's clear they have to capture, otherwise they'd lose here. So then, do we capture with the pawn or with the bishop? Well, here's where the nuance comes in. When they don't chase away our bishop, remember this, when they don't chase away our bishop, instead of capturing with the pawn, we'll capture with the bishop. And this is key. Why? Because here we're going to enter a variation, an endgame, that will give us a small but very comfortable advantage to play. Now you might say, now they really can chase away this bishop, because there's no longer any kind of jump available. And now if you come here, this sacrifice would simply be a disaster, because you'll never be able to put pressure here. So here, what you need to do is trade this bishop for this knight. And you might say, Chestercher, you're giving up the bishop pair. Yes, yes. And I don't stop there, because now when they capture, I also give up the other bishop. Why? Because look, this has been studied, okay? It's been studied and I've played it many times. This endgame is much better. No, much more comfortable to play for the white pieces. It's a slightly better endgame for white, but in terms of comfort, it's way more comfortable. For example, look, in the game we're currently watching, white simply played c3 to support the center, possibly preparing d4. And to give the queen access to both flanks, black played rook to b8, targeting this point here. So white just pushed this pawn forward. Notice that throughout, you'll see that white is much more comfortable. They bring the queen into the attack, targeting this weak spot. Notice that they always have the initiative. The only way to properly defend this point is by advancing to d5. That way, they connect the pawn with the queen, and so here, the player with the white pieces, knowing this, knew these pawns were going to be exchanged, right? If black doesn't do it, white will, and this file's going to open up. Take a good look at this great move. He places the rook on a potentially open file. Black captures here, white does too, and now this rook is already in its optimal spot, right? Black tries to break through here because they're not doing much, and look at this excellent move. He pushes this pawn to trap black's bishop. Now, for the time being, black is down a piece. Do you see that? Sometimes having a piece on the board doesn't mean anything, because right now, this bishop is like a pawn. I don't know who I heard this from online, but they used to call this kind of bishop a fat pawn. Why? Because it acts like a pawn, it can't go anywhere, and not here either because the queen is there. So notice that what white did here was simply trap this bishop, so it can never get out again. And black is playing down a piece. Black tries to double up their rooks. Sorry, this is what they should try, doubling up the rooks. So that if they capture here, at least the pawns would no longer be doubled, right? But instead of this, they played rook takes rook. Why is this not a good move? I'll explain it very simply. Whenever you have rooks facing each other, many of you probably already know this, you should let your opponent capture, because the one who captures loses control of the file. Here, black captures, so now white gains control of the file. Now it's white who dominates this whole file with their rook. Black, to their credit, now places the other rook to face off, taking advantage of the fact that it's defended by the queen. So, what should we do now? Should we trade? Should we let them trade with this? Well, in this case, what was done is, if you want to exchange, I'd rather you exchange here, where I'm going to place a pawn that's about to promote. That's why black, instead of capturing, decided to go on the attack. And now, once they've weakened themselves even more, now I'm going to capture this rook. And you might say, this seems pointless, but it's not, because now, look closely, I could even capture this pawn here. Would it be a good idea to just capture here right now? No, it wouldn't be a good idea, and I'll explain why. Because if we capture now, simply queen to d4 would come, they'd capture our knight, or if not, they'd checkmate us on the back rank. That is, sometimes you have to be very careful with free pawns. In this case, white logically saw it and played queen to c2, defending the queen's entry squares a bit. Here, logically she couldn't come in anymore because we have the knight, right? It's that simple. Very well. Queen to f6 in this game, knight to d2. Look how important this move is. This knight here can't go anywhere. Not here, not there, no, no, no. So this move, knight to d2, is aiming for the following: to redirect the knight via f1, and now, where is it going to come out? Well, it's simply going to come out through e3. And notice now that this knight, which wasn't doing anything here, when the position is closed, some maneuvers have been made to place this knight, and this knight is a beast. It has two extremely strong squares here. Notice now that the king wanted to come over here, but he would have lost the game to a check, and we would have taken the queen. That's why the king moves forward. Even so, white brings in the knight with a lot of force. Black has to move the queen because it's under attack, and now capturing here wouldn't benefit us at all. It's very simple. When you have to make a piece exchange, think about it. Which piece is better, mine or my opponent's? Logically, mine is better. So I'm not going to give up my good piece for a bad piece from my opponent, right? This piece looks like a fat pawn. I'm not going to give it away. So, well, I expand, gain a little bit of space, and see if I can win that bishop in the future. Black also wants to attack, but white simply attacks the queen. And when the queen moves away, it comes back here to threaten to win the bishop. And pay attention, because the black doesn't let up. And right here, pawn takes pawn, wins the game. If the king captures, we would simply win the bishop. Simple, you see? And if the queen captures, which is what happened in the game, check out this amazing fork to finish the game in style. It's true that this game ended in a very elegant way because black made a mistake, but if they had captured with the king, you would just play this and go into an endgame with an extra piece. In other words, we're winning here too. So, go over this video carefully, save it, because if you watch it several times and really master it, you'll have an opening in your repertoire, the Italian, where you can win a ton of games. If your rating is under 2000 LO, and especially if it's under 1800, well, you absolutely have to play this because it's an opening you'll face a lot, so you'll have this attack under control. So I hope you loved this video. You already know that if we reach 300 likes, I think I said 300, right? I'm going to show you an attack plan in the Spanish opening, and I'll see you in the next video, friends. Goodbye.